What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another episode of PS4 Jailbreak Tutorials. This is the series that shows you how to take full advantage of your jailbroken PS4. So in this episode, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use remote play, how to set up remote play on your jailbroken PS4 so you can remotely access your jailbroken PS4 from other devices like your computer, phone, or tablet, and also how to get remote play working over the internet as well as LAN, so that you can, again, remote into your PS4 from outside your internal home network. So yeah, I'm going to be covering all of that here in this video. So before we begin, obviously, if you don't know what remote play is, it's, like I say, it's basically a remote access app that allows you to remote control your PS4 from another device. So there's a few different ways that we can set this up. So if you're on an activated account, and in the previous video I showed you guys how to activate a local account, then you should be able to just go into the settings and go into the remote play connection settings, and it should work. It should give you access to the settings menu. However, if you're on a local account, you will not be able to access this unless you run Gold Hen. So you'll need to go onto your exploit host, go into the internet browser, load up whichever exploit host you're using. So I'm still using caro218.ir right now. So go on your exploit host, load up the WebKit exploit. And then once the WebKit exploit loads, we can then load the actual jailbreak itself, which is this one right here. And then once the jailbreak loads, you want to run Gold Hen version 1.1 or the latest version of Gold Hen to enable the remote play connection settings. So once you've ran that, you'll then be able to access the remote play connection settings. And obviously you want to make sure that enable remote play is selected. You also want to make sure, of course, that you are connected to your network and that you have a valid IP address by going into system information and making sure that there is actually an IP address that shows up in there. There we go, 192.168.1.95. So we're ready now to set up remote play. So there's a few different ways to do this. Like I say, I'm going to cover how to do it over LAN and over the internet, and I'll also cover how to get remote play working on other devices other than just your desktop computer. So we'll start off by showing you how to get remote play working on a Windows machine, because there's kind of different ways of doing this. Okay, so switching over to the computer, as you can see, I've got a bunch of different stuff here. I'll link it all in the description. So I already have the remote play app installed. Now, if you've already tried this before, you'll probably have run into this problem. So if I load up the remote play app, this is the normal remote play app that you just download from, PlayStation.com. And if I go to select PS4, and it's going to search for my PS4. And then, of course, if I go into the remote play connection settings on my PS4 and add device to get the code to link the app to the PS4, then you can see it says it can't find the PS4, enter number. So it gives me the number to link it manually. And then we try and link it. You'll see what happens here, linking your PS4 as if it's going to work. And then we just get this something went wrong, 0x8 error. So yeah, it doesn't work. So the latest version of the remote play client does not work. And that's because our PS4 is running on an older firmware. So the app is designed for higher firmware PS4s. So if you have the latest version of the remote play app installed on your PC, then make sure you uninstall it. So if we go to uninstall a program, we go down to PS Remote Play and then uninstall to get rid of it. And what we're going to do is install an older version that will work on our firmware. So for 5.05 PS4s and I think 6.72 PS4s as well, you can download this version of the Remote Play installer, which is version 2.6, which will work for, I think, 5.05 and 6.72. And now, if you're on, I think, 7.02 and 7.55, then you'll need version 3 of the Remote Play installer. So if you right-click on them, you'll see if I right-click on this one and go to details, this is version 2.6, which is the one that will work on 5.05 and 6.72. This one here, version 3, if I right click and go to properties, go to details, you can see it is file version 3.0, which should work on 7.55 and probably 7.02 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run version 3 since I'm on 7.55 firmware. So I'm going to go ahead and install this version of the remote play client. And we'll just go ahead and do the setup installer, install it to the default location. click finish. There it is right there. And then before you run the program, we're going to use the patcher, the PS4 patcher, which is also available in this download, the remote play patcher. So we're also going to run that. So you just extract the files to a folder and then right click and run as administrator on the PS4 remote play auto patcher. And then click the button here, click no, and the remote play was patched successfully. Click OK. What that does is it removes the updater from the remote play app, because normally if you run an older version of the app, it will try and automatically update to the latest version, whereas this patcher will strip the updater from the app so that it will not try and update to a newer version. So we can run this older version now. Okay, and then we can click start and it should start searching for the PS4. Now, this is where some things are a little bit different depending on whether you're on an activated account or a non-activated account. If you're not on an activated account, or you have another account with remote play enabled that is not activated, then it should work. As you can see here, it worked. So yeah, as you can see, it does work here. This is remote play working, but as you can see, it popped up saying user 1 connected instead of this modded warfare account. And that is because I have another local account on my PS4 that is not activated and it has remote play enabled. So it connected to that. But in order to get my activated account to work, because my account is activated with a legitimate PSN account ID, again, it was covered in the previous episode. So if you have an account on your PS4 that you're trying to use remote play with and it's activated with a legitimate PSN account ID from a real PSN account that you have access to, then in order to get that to work, in order to actually log in as that user, then what you need to do is when you use the remote play client, if we reopen this, you need to go into the settings and you need to sign into that account on PlayStation Network. So once you've signed in like this, you can then change PS4 to connect to and then let it try and connect. It gives me the code to enter. So we can do 740 and then we can do 6515 and register. And there we go, we're connecting. And as you can see this time, it says modded warfare connected using remote play instead of user 1. So that is how it's kind of a little bit different between a activated account and a non-activated account. On a non-activated account, you should just be able to connect no problem with Gold Hen running. As long as you're running Gold Hen and you have the remote play connection settings enabled, it should be able to connect without having to sign into a PSN account on the app. Whereas if you're on an activated account that's activated with a real PSN account ID, then you'll need to sign in as that user. You'll need to sign in on the remote play app with that same PSN account. So that's why it's a little bit different between running Gold Hen on a non-activated account and not running Gold Hen and just using an activated account to use remote play. So that's all well and good for a Windows PC, right? But that's not going to work on other devices. What if you want to use remote play on your Android device, your phone, your tablet, your macOS or Linux machine? Then that's not going to work because that whole auto patcher thing just works for the Windows version. So in that case, what you can do is use a open source remote play client like this one right here, which obviously will be linked in the description. Basically, all you do is scroll down to, where is it? Scroll down to the releases section right here. It says you can download them here. If you click here and then click the latest version up here, you can see there is a Linux version, an Android version. There's even a Switch version for jailbroken switches, so you can actually remote play into your PS4 from your jailbroken Nintendo Switch, which is pretty awesome. Then you've also got, like a Windows version as well, and an Android version and a macOS version. So I'll show you guys the Windows version first, because it should be pretty much the same for, macOS and Linux. So basically, you download the zip file. We'll create a new folder called the name of the client, which I can't pronounce. And then I'm going to go ahead and extract all of the files into that folder. So once we have it extracted into the folder, we can then run the client and that opens right there. And oh, I didn't realize I actually had some stuff already added here. Let's just reset this to do this from scratch. So yeah, basically you've got the little Wi-Fi detection here, which should automatically detect the PS4 on the network. For some reason, it never seems to auto detect it for me. The Android version does, but this version doesn't. So what you need to do is if it's not showing up when you enable the Wi-Fi, then just add it manually by the IP address. So we can add console manually, And then we can enter 192.168.1.95, the IP address of the PS4, and then click save, and that will add it manually. Then just double click it, and then it will give you a few different options here. So there's the console version. So if you're on 5.05, if you're on 7.0 or lower, then you select that. If you're between 7.00 and 8.00, then you would select this option. And obviously if you're above 8.0, you would select this option. So again, if you're using Remote Play with Gold Hen on a non-activated account, then you can just enter the username of your local account that you're signed into on the PS4 in here, if you're on less than 7.0, or if you're on an activated account with a legitimate PSN account ID, then you can just enter the username of that PSN account in order to be able to connect. If you're between 7.0 and 8.0 or 8.00 or higher, then you're going to have to enter your PSN account ID as a base 64 string. So again, if you're on a local account and that's not activated and you're using Gold Hen to enable the Remote Play connection settings, you can just enter a fake base 64 string in here, which is just an 11-digit number, basically with an equal sign at the end. Use characters instead of numbers. So for example, I'll just use F. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Fs, and then equals at the end, and that should do. And then all I have to do is go back onto the Remote Play connection settings and go back down to add device to get the code. And the code is 33280394. So if I enter that and then click register, you can see it registered successfully. And now I can double click again to enable Remote Play. And there we go. Boom, we're up and running again with Remote Play, which works absolutely fine. So that is another way of accessing Remote Play using this open source Remote Play client instead of, using a legitimate Remote Play client. Now, that worked for me because I'm using Gold Hen, so I could just enter any random account ID and it worked. But if you're not using Gold Hen and you're on an activated account that's activated with a legitimate account ID, you can actually still get this to work without Hen running, as long as you enter, instead of entering a fake ID, which is what we did, instead of entering a fake ID, a fake base 64 string, you can actually get the real account ID of your PSN account and put that in, and then it will allow you to connect without even having to run the jailbreak. So as long as you're on an activated account, obviously. So I'll show you guys quickly how you do that. All you need to do is go back to the page where we downloaded the application for the open source Remote Play client. If we go back here, we can go to tar.gz, which downloads the source. So if we download the source right there, as you can see, I've already got it downloaded here. If we open that up, there is a script in here that can get us our legitimate account ID. So if we go into this folder and then we go into the scripts folder, there's a script in here called psnaccountid.py. So if I extract that to my desktop, and you will need Python for this, Python downloads, if you just download the latest version, Python 3.9.6 or whatever the latest version is when you're watching this, download and install Python. It's just a default setup installer. Once you have that installed, you'll then be able to use this. So if we just create a new folder, shove this in, and we'll click up here in the file path and type in cmd space and then enter. That will open up the command prompt in that directory. Then we can just copy the name of this script file and basically just paste it in and press enter. And that will run the script if you have the correct version of Python installed. And as you can see, it says copy this link right here into your internet browser. So if we go ahead and do that and press enter, and from here, we just want to sign in to our PSN account. Obviously, the same account that you activated your local account with on your Jailbroken PS4, as we did in the previous episode. Sign in. So we log in, and it should take us to this redirect page. When you get to this page that says redirect, you want to then copy the URL from the browser and paste it back into the script on our command prompt, and then press enter. And then that will give us our base 64 account ID, as you can see right here. And then we can just copy that and enter that into the program. So if we go ahead and add our IP address again, and we again set this up the way we did before. So we paste in the legitimate account ID this time, and then enter the PIN number. which is 4630.4258. So we enter that and click register. You can see it works, and we can log in. So that will work without Gold Hen. So you'll be able to use this without running the jailbreak or anything like that. You'll be able to just remote connect into your PS4 without running Gold Hen, and it should work because, you know, you're using the legitimate account ID for that account. So it will authorize and allow you to connect with remote play. Whereas if you are not on an activated account, or you're on an account that's activated with a fake ID, then you can just use Gold Hen and just use a fake base 64 string for the account ID, and it should still allow it to work. So that is kind of the two ways of accessing that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is show you guys how to get it working over Android, an Android device. So if you go onto the Google Play Store on your Android device, and then go and search for the name of the app, or you can just search for PS4 Remote Play. So if you search for PS4 Remote Play and scroll down, if I go to more results, I should find it. There it is down there. Open source remote play. If I select it and install the application, and this is literally just the Android version of that same open source app that we just used on our PC. So once it's done, we can open it. And as you can see, for some reason, this one actually detects it on my connection. So it detects the PS4 straight away. But obviously, if it doesn't detect your PS4, then just click the little plus button down here and add console manually, where you just enter the IP address in here and click save, which is exactly what we did before. And then select the PS4 once it's added. And then we're going to again do PS4 between 7.0 and 8.0. I'll just enter a fake ID since I'm running Gold Hen. And then we'll go ahead and enter the PIN number again. And we'll go ahead and click done and register. And boom, there we go, done. So all I have to do is select it on my phone. And there we go, remote play is now enabled on my phone. So as you can see there, it is working. And we have remote play on an Android device. So yeah, that is basically how you get remote play working right there. Okay, so that is essentially how you get the remote play client working on multiple different devices on your jailbroken PS4. But everything we've done so far has been on the local area connection, which means we're only able to actually access remote play, log into our PS4 if we're on the same network that our PS4 is running on. So what about if you're on a different network? What if you want to remote play into your PS4 from the internet, over the internet, from somewhere else? You're on a completely different network. How do you do that? So what you need to do is basically just add the console via your public IP address on the internet rather than a local IP address. So far we've been adding the PS4 under 192.168.1.95, which obviously that's a private IP address, a local IP address. But if we add the PS4 via our public IP address, then we can access it from the internet. Now, it's not always going to be as simple as this, as I'll show, but that is essentially how we need to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and add the console again. So add console manually, but instead of entering the local IP address, I'll enter the public IP address, which you can get on your PS4 by going into the internet browser and going to whatismyip.com. Then that will give you your public IP address. And there you can see mine is right there. So I'm just going to enter that IP address into the app. So 92.7.210.82. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that IP address and click save. And that's added it right there. Now, one of the issues that might come up if I select this, so we'll select it, we'll do the same thing we did before, we'll just enter a fake ID since I'm running Gold Hen, and then we'll go ahead and enter the PIN number, done, register, and as you can see, it timed out, so it failed to register. And every time I do this, it keeps timing out and failing to register under this IP address. So the reason it's doing that is because we're trying to connect on the public IP address. We are essentially trying to access it over the internet, which means we have to get through our firewall. When we're trying to access on the local connection, we're inside our firewall, so there's no issues with the connection. But when we are trying to access it over the internet, then we're having to basically go through the firewall, and the firewall on our router is probably going to be blocking the connection. So this is where some of the problems can come in. So what you basically need to do is port forward the ports on your router for the remote play connection, and then you'll be able to access it over the internet. So in order to port forward, basically what you need to do is, on a computer that's on the same network that your PS4 is on, you need to go ahead and run the command prompt. So run the command prompt and then type in ipconfig and press enter. And then what we need to do is grab the default gateway address of the adapter that's providing your connection with the internet. So we're going to go ahead and copy that default gateway address. And then from there, we're going to go and paste that in right here into your web browser. So when I paste that into my browser, it takes me here and I have to log in to my router. So the problem with showing how to port forward is that every person's router is going to be like a different model and it's going to look completely different. So you're not going to be able to follow this exactly the same for everyone. So if you just go to the website portforward.com and then go to routers, all routers, you can then select your router model, or if it's not on here, just select one that's as close to your model as possible. So I can select like a Netgear router, for example. We'll just close the ad. And then it gives you a list of all the different models of Netgear routers. So I can select one of these models. And then from there, it basically gives me a step-by-step guide with screenshots on how to access the router page and port forward on that router. It even gives you the default username and password for the router if you don't know what the username and password is. So it gives you all of that. So on my router, what I need to do is go into the firewall options. So on my router anyway, it gives you a list of games and applications that you can port forward, and then which device you want to forward the ports for. So in my case, remote play is not going to be on here. So I need to go to manage games and applications. So then I go to add new game or application. And then for the port number, I need to add 987. So I want 987 and any protocol, which means TCP and UDP. So I'll add that. And then I need 9295 to 9297. So 9295 to 9297 and add that as well. Oh, and then I need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it PS4 Remote Play. And we're not copying an existing application. And then I'm going to click apply. And once I do that, that should add the remote play to the list. So there we go. I can now go back to port forwarding and now select that from the list. So it should now appear in here. PS4 remote play, there it is. So I'll select it. Then I'm just going to select a user-defined IP address and enter the IP address of the PS4. So 192.168.1.95, add. And that there adds it to the list. And now I can click apply. And boom, we're good. We are now port forwarded. So those ports are now open on my firewall so that if I try and connect to my PS4 with a public IP address, it should be able to access the PS4 over the internet now. So now if I go back onto the application and try and register again on the public IP address, this has changed. So I need to enter a new PIN number. So 5381 by 2581. Done. Register. And boom, as you can see, it worked. This time it worked. As you can see, public IP address registered. If I select it, yep, there we go. There we go. That is working over the internet. So it is a little bit laggier because it's over the internet. Bit more input lag. But as you can see, it is working. So that is how you get it working over the internet. And well, there you go. You can see all of the stutters there that are going on. Got to bear in mind, I only have a 1 megabit per second upstream on my connection, on my internet connection, which is really bad. My downstream isn't too bad, but my upstream is terrible, which is why you get a lot of these, well, poor quality and visual artifacts and stuff and input lag. But obviously, if you have a better internet connection, which probably most of you do, then you'll get a better experience using this over the internet than I am. But yeah, that's basically it. That's how you set up Remote Play. I showed you guys how to get it working with the official Remote Play app, just an older version on your computer, your Windows computer, as well as how to use the open source Remote Play app on not just your computer, but also an Android device. And obviously, it's the same process for, you know, the other versions, the macOS version, the Linux version, the Switch version. It's the same application, basically. So if you know how to set it up on Android and Windows, then you can set it up on all these other operating systems as well. And I also showed you guys how to get Remote Play working over the internet so you can remotely access your PS4 from another network. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.